All right, folks, welcome into a very special episode of I've Got a Theory. I'm your host, Henish, and I've got with me my guest, David Weiss. David,
Yes.
thanks for joining me. And we've got a lot to talk about, especially on the shape of the Earth and all the other implications that go along with that. But before we go into that, hey guys, this is Henish with I've Got a Theory, and I wanted to share a new podcast that I discovered recently called Signal. It's Sygnyl, and it's super interesting. We're going to play a trailer at the end of our episode here, and it's just launched. It's a participatory arts podcast, which invites listeners to explore the hidden world all around them. So there's going to be little challenges. It's collaborative. You can print out worksheets, and I've been following along raptly because it's super cool. It's subtle, and you wouldn't know how into it you can get. And there's already 2 episodes out so far, so I'm rolling with it. Sygnyl, signal.com. So tell me a little bit about yourself. Where do you live? What are you up to? How do you spend your days?
Geez, this is how I spend my days now. I live on the East Coast in Connecticut, and I used to have my own company. I had a couple partners. I had a very, very successful commercial solar integration company. And I walked away from it all to do this because when you realize the importance of what I call the globe lie, hiding the true Earth, then you start to see things differently. And I had the opportunity to walk away, left a lot of money on the table, and here I am. So I spend my day trying to help the world see the deception that has been cast upon us.
Okay, so let's start kind of with like our universal grand theory. So talk to me about how you believe the universe works, our space in it, things like that.
So the word flat earth, it's a weaponized term, just like, conspiracy theorists. There are conspiracies. 2 or more people get together to conspire for their own benefit. That's a conspiracy. It's not a theory, it's a conspiracy. So there's many conspiracies going on in this world, and we're going to quickly get to, you're an intelligent guy, you're going to say, well, why the lie? Why, as I start destroying all your heliocentric beliefs, you're going to say, why the lie? Let's save that for the end of the show. All right.
Great.
Why the lie?
Yeah.
So there's 2 things that people that believe in the ball have in common. One is they have a misconception of what the flat earth is. They think that the flat earth is a disc floating in space because they Googled flat earth one day and they ended up at the Flat Earth Society and they see a meme like this, ball planets and a flat earth, right? And we've heard Bill Nye saying, it's impossible, the water would fall off. And if you got to the edge, it would suck you back to the middle. No flat earther believes any of that crap. No flat earther believes that we're a disc or a turnip floating in space with a dome over us. That is a false belief. That is put out there on purpose. President Obama during his speeches 6 times mentioned the Flat Earth Society. That's weird, right? Because he wants you to go there. He wants you, if you're researching flat earth, to go there, because then you will be gatekept and you will laugh at flat earth forever. Kind of like
because it's interesting because on a comparable note, I was watching some Obama videos where he alludes to aliens.
Yeah, well, that's another semi-deception. Aliens and extraterrestrials. We'll get into that during the show.
Okay.
And you'll see that they make a lot more sense on flat earth. So that's one thing that they all have in common. The other thing is they don't even understand what the heliocentric model is. I'm going to ask you some questions. I'm not picking on you because I failed all of these questions when they were originally asked to me. So you can start off with, if you get one right, you did better than I did. How fast is the globe Earth spinning?
About 25,000 miles per day.
Well, that's very good. It's about 24,900 miles around. It spins once a day. So at the equator, it's spinning about 1,000 miles an hour.
Yeah.
Right. But if you're a mile from the North Pole, you're not spinning at 1,000 miles an hour. You're going once a day. But that circle is only 3.14 miles around. Pi, a mile from the North Pole, is 3.14 miles. So you're going like 1/3 of a mile an hour if you're a mile from the North Pole. But you're going 1,000 miles an hour if you're at the equator. You with me?
Yeah.
Do you understand that?
Yep.
Your angular rotation is the same, but somebody at the equator has to do a big circle, and somebody right near the North Pole is just doing a little circle.
Sure.
Okay. They're going around together. So one's going 1,000 miles an hour. The other one's going 1/3 of a mile an hour, or whatever that math
is. Is it
comes
the
out to
same?
be.
Because imagine a wheel is doing the same thing, right?
Right. If you go on the outside of a merry-go-round,
yeah,
the big carousel for the adults at the, I don't know if you've ever been to an amusement park that has a big one. If they only let adults sit on the outside ones because the centrifugal force is much stronger because you're going faster out there.
Sure.
Closer to the center, you're going much slower.
Are you? Because they're going around at the same pace, but they're covering less distance.
So yeah, they're covering less distance. Here's a spinning globe, and if you're on the equator right here, you're making this big circle, which is the diameter of that globe. But if you're all the way up right near the North Pole, you're making a small little circle.
At the same pace?
No, not at the same pace, at the same angle per minute. You're going 15 degrees per hour, but your circle, if I'm standing a mile from the North Pole, I'm going to go around the North Pole, staying a mile from it because that's the axis of rotation. And in 24 hours, I'm going to move 3.14 miles. That's very slow.
Right.
But if I'm on the equator, I'm going to go 24,000 miles. I'm going 1,000 miles an hour.
And that's relative to basically nothing, right? Because we're on the planet. It's like saying, like, if you're
hang with me here. Hang with me. It's all relative to nonsense is what it's relative to. So that was very good. You had the concept right. While we're spinning, we're orbiting the sun at 66,600 miles an hour. I gave you that one.
Sure,
okay.
Sure.
That's a ridiculous speed. And we're chasing the sun because it's flying like a rocket ship through space at a half a million miles an hour. And somehow.
So hold on. So David, just to go back to that. So are these facts that you believe as well, that you do believe that the sun is not moving through the space? It's not.
No, I don't believe any of this. This is pseudoscience, and this is what's taught in schools. Okay. Because every experiment done by qualified, published scientists that prove the axial rotation or the sphericity of Earth, they've all failed, and they've proven the opposite. So we're spinning at 1,000 miles an hour. We're orbiting at 66,000 miles an hour, and somehow all of the other planets are staying on that same plane. They're not going around like atoms, like crazy. They're all staying on that same plane, chasing the sun, staying on that same plane with the sun somehow as the sun curves around. This is insanity. Okay. And that entire system, the galaxy or the solar system, the galaxy is moving sideways at 1.2 or 2.2 million miles an hour. It really doesn't matter because the speeds are ridiculous. Right. But somehow, with all of those motions, the star patterns never change. They're the same. If you go out tonight and mark where the stars are at a certain time, go out next year, same time, same night, the stars will be in the exact same position. This is the fact, not a belief.
Over hundreds or thousands of years, doesn't that change? Because then you talk about like the different,
different North Star,
Age of Aquarius, right? And Age of Aries and things like that. So which ones are in alignment based on history? And then when they go back to talk about the Mayans or the Egyptians and their star charts, it was a little bit different. And when you go back in time, it was aligned with that history. No.
So if you look at the pyramids, the Egyptian pyramids and all of the other pyramids that are just like those across the plain, they're all pointing towards Orion to this very day. If you go to Stonehenge, there's a hole through the rock that's pointing towards the North Star. They built this. This is built, to last for centuries and centuries. And it's if we're moving, it wouldn't stay there for one day, let alone decade after decade, century after century. All of these things are pointing towards fixed objects, right? So let me finish where we're going, and then I'll explain how it works, and then it'll come together, and you can ask me any questions that you want. Okay. So the helio-nonsensical system, which we believe in, makes zero sense at all. So what is the flat Earth? What is the flat Earth? So think about the Earth as a puddle, right? Think about a puddle. A puddle accumulates at the lowest point in the land, right? A puddle accumulates at the low point in the land, and the edge of the puddle is the land that's just higher than the water surface, right? Pretty simple. Puddle. You've seen a puddle. A pond is a bigger puddle. A lake is a bigger pond. Okay. Imagine a big lake, and there's islands in the middle of spread out in that lake, right? Those are pieces of land that are higher than the water surface. The edge of the lake, what is that, a cliff, or is that just land that's higher than the water surface? Land that's higher than the water surface, right? So that's what the world is. Think of all of the oceans of the world as a giant lake, and all of the continents as islands throughout that lake. And the shoreline that surrounds the world ocean, we call Antarctica. Antarctica is not the continent at the bottom of a ball. It's the shoreline that surrounds the world's oceans. Okay. And Antarctica is the highest land on Earth. You go to Antarctica, the land is 200 feet over your head, okay, the ice shelf. And then it goes on for hundreds of miles. And then there's a mountain range, massive mountain range. We're not allowed to explore there. So anything beyond the shoreline of Antarctica is speculation. So we can speculate all we want, but there's plenty right under our feet that we can answer. The Earth is 70% water. That seems to be about right. Large bodies of water at rest lay flat. We can see too far. If the Earth is 24,901 miles around, there's a curvature. There's a rate of curvature. We have their math. It's a simple formula. And at 6 feet, I mean, at 3 miles, there's 6 feet of drop. So 6 foot tall guy standing at the edge of calm water can see the water surface for 6 miles. 6 miles, correct? 3 miles, and then the surface of that water will drop behind a physical horizon because of the curved Earth and the water sticking to the curved Earth. Another insane thing. And I shouldn't be able to see the surface of the water, but here we have a camera 1 foot off the ground. The horizon should be like 1.2 miles away. Here's a oil rig that's 9.4 miles away. There should be 59 feet of curvature according to globe science math. Right. But not only can we see the rig and the water up to the rig, we can see the water for miles and miles and miles beyond the rig. That's impossible on a curved Earth. There is no curvature. Some people say, well, maybe the Earth is bigger. Okay. With our infrared cameras and stuff, we can see things so far. The Earth would have to be over 1,000 times bigger, and it still would have hidden stuff that we can see, and we can see too far. So,
okay.
So you have a question there, like, the normal question is, well, how come I can't see Mount Everest? How come I can't see Europe? So I could explain that, or you can ask me another question.
No, I mean, in terms of like, we know we can't trust our eyes.
Well, so you have God-given senses and you believe that you can't trust your eyes. Yeah, there's things that, when you look over distance, things do get compressed down low. And we have weird things, like when we look across the water, it looks like the bottom of this building's cut off. But what you can see is these balconies, which are all the same size. As you get lower, they get compressed. That's just atmospheric compression.
Sure.
Right?
So something in the air is doing that.
Well, no, it's the water vapor in the air acts like a magnifying glass, and it expands things. And as things are going, here's where it's complicated. As things move into the distance, they get smaller, but the farther they go, the more they magnify. So they're getting smaller and being magnified at the same time, and they're literally getting pushed below the point of convergence, where it looks like the water is hiding these, like it's behind a curve. But this is what we call the wave front edge. And again, we're not going to have enough time to get into that, but I'm going to show you where you can get all this information. What I'm here to do today is not to convince you the Earth is flat. I'm going to point to some doors and show you some answers that you didn't know existed. And you're like, I never thought about that. And then show you where you can figure it out yourself.
So let's go back a few billion years.
Well, that existed, but go ahead, theoretically.
How did this all start? What's our best theory on how our Earth was formed, or how our solar system was formed, or how our galaxy and or universe was formed?
Okay, so the best theory that they have, and I say theory because it's their theory, is once there was nothing, it exploded and created everything. And then all of the rocky matter turned into perfect spinning balls and got water somehow. And all of the hydrogen, collected and created giant burning balls, and lightning struck and created an amoeba that turned into a fish that grew legs, that found another fish that grew legs. And they had a monkey, and the monkey had a retarded baby, and it was a human. Okay. That's their theory. That's insanity.
What's a different theory?
The different theory is, the Earth. Here's the thing. I don't know how any of this was done, but what I can tell you is the Earth is not a random accident. It was created. Okay. It's intelligently designed. So there's a designer, there's a creator.
What? Okay. So let's go down that rabbit hole a little bit. Why do we think there's a creator?
Well, because the Earth is intelligently designed. It's not a random accident. It's not the ridiculous story I told you of the Big Bang and things coalescing and lightning striking and creating DNA, which is impossible. And that, mutating. When things mutate, they don't grow eyeballs, that can see color and discern shadows and all sorts of things. They don't do that. Things go to chaos. They get worse when they mutate. But we're getting smart. We're getting more and more evolved. Evolution is a complete and total lie. Now there is microevolution, like people like
the coronavirus 19 could convert into coronavirus 21.
Yeah. Well, again, show me. Have you isolated the coronavirus? Have you ever seen it? Has anyone ever isolated it?
No, I'm with you. I'm skeptical of the coronavirus. I think something sketchy there. But the thing is, like, but you do agree that viruses or bacteria or small scale life, we can almost see.
No, I do not agree with that at all. That viruses do not have life. They do not have DNA. They're not alive. They're actually called exosomes. When your body is under stress, your cells spit out these particles that are exosomes. Okay, and they call them viruses. They've taken them from people, and they show that they are not contagious. You cannot give them to anybody else. They're not contagious. And basically, it's like when you have lots of these in your body, it's because your body's healthy and its immune system is working. That's like me going to fires. I love house fires. And every time I go to a house fire, I say, there's ambulances and fire engines at every one of these. Therefore, the ambulances and fire engines are the cause of the fire. That's the exact same logic with exosomes and viruses.
So you don't think that these things have evolved and they mutate and change, and the diseases that affect humans and or other lives on this planet are changing to keep combating us?
Absolutely not. It's 100% nonsense. If you know what the PCR test is?
Remind me.
So the PCR test is how they're diagnosing people that have corona.
Okay.
That have this. The guy that developed the PCR test, if you go watch his last couple of interviews before he mysteriously died last year, he says that the PCR test is absolutely 100% useless and pointless at using to diagnose disease. It's not meant for that. All it is meant to do is diagnose a piece of genetic material that you may or may not have in your body. And it's very inaccurate. It doesn't always see it. But if it does see it, it doesn't mean you have anything. It means it just identified this. And they said that it's identifying 80%, right? 80% of this DNA. Well, we're like 96% the same DNA as monkeys. Okay. So 80% is the biggest failure you could ever imagine anywhere. So, and also when they do this, they keep doubling it. They have this, they amplify it. So they get this tiny piece of stuff and they amplify it again and again and again. And if you, and the guy said that made the test, if you amplify it 15 times, you won't find anything. If you amplify it over 30 times, you'll probably find anything you want in every single person. Okay. And right now, because they're all the positives, they're amplifying these things 40 and 45 times. All right. It should find 100% of the people that take the test have the COVID, right? But the test is so inaccurate, it can't even see what it's all created itself. It doesn't diagnose disease. This is the biggest scam on history. We can go down this path all day, but you're going to have a hard time keeping this on YouTube if we do.
And I'm with you on that. I feel like something is a little fishy with the coronavirus, but
it's beyond
I still want to dig down the flat earth a little bit. So the theory is that an intelligent creator has created our globe, and evolution. I'm sorry. Our what we live on. What would you call it?
I call it a plane.
A plane. Okay, it lives in our plane, and has made everything perfectly to interact with each other, including the gas that we breathe, our interaction, how similar we are to monkeys, our interdependence on the bacteria that live inside of us. There's bacteria that live inside of us.
Absolutely.
Yes. Okay, good. Just making sure. Just trying to set the plane, the precedence there. So we have these things that we've evolved. It was one of the interesting lessons that I learned over the year is how snakes had venom that was so powerful that some snakes can kill, hundreds of people with one drop of venom. Do you agree that happens?
Sure.
Yeah. So, the way I was taught was that it's because the prey that they eat, let's say it's a rodent or a lizard or something like that, over the years was able to create a tolerance to their venom. And as a result, the the snakes the ones that had the most powerful venom would have the best odds of eating and thus the best odds of reproducing.
That's microevolution. That what that is, the strongest men breed with the prettiest women, and therefore they have pretty children that are very strong. That's microevolution. But never does a man turn into another species. Never does a monkey turn into a man. Never does a rat turn into a squirrel. That never happens. There's never do birds turn into dinosaurs. It's nonsense.
No, I would agree. I think evolution has died at humanity with humans, but I feel like it's still happening with animals and plants.
So show me an animal that has become another animal.
Yeah, I mean, for example, like I remember I've had these conversations because one of my friends is an evolutionary scientist, and I'm like, duck-billed platypuses, Australia, why do they have such weird animals in these isolated Madagascar, right? There's places on the planet that are isolated from the rest of the world and have evolved odd plants and animals that don't live anywhere else.
So yeah, you can interbreed animals together. You can put a horse and a mule, and you get a donkey or whatever the combination is, and a lion and a tiger, and you get something else. So imagine you breed a lion and a tiger, you get a liger, I think that's what they call it, and then you take those ligers and you put them on Madagascar. Okay, and then nobody goes there forever, and now they have all of these ligers there, and they're like, these must have evolved from here. No, they were just the breeding of something else, and they were isolated somewhere in the land. That's all. It's very simple.
Yeah. So maybe. So you think that potentially same with like kangaroos that are in Australia, that they were like a mix of something that hops and something that like a deer and a rabbit?
You look at maybe, I don't know. I'm not.
Okay,
I'm not
no problem. No problem. We don't have to drill down that way.
It's provable that you can mate a Chihuahua with a friggin' Great Dane, and then you're going to get something really weird, and you could take that and move it to Australia and say, well, this crazy thing, only evolved in Australia. No, it didn't. It's just the weird mating of two different dogs.
Yeah, I mean, and I agree. Dogs breeds are a prime example of, I guess you'd call it microevolution, because they say that dogs all came from wolves, and that from selective breeding, they were able to breed for different characteristics: big dogs, small dogs, hairy dogs, slow dogs, fat dogs, cute dogs, whatever you want. But they all can reproduce with each other and produce other dogs, right? And then they're viable offspring, right? Versus a lion and tiger, you reproduce them, or a donkey and a horse, those don't create viable species. Those offshoots can't breed. They're like genetic dead ends for some reason. I don't know the exact mechanisms behind it. I'm sure someone that's smarter in animals could tell you why. But yeah, they're sterile. They can't reproduce. So you can't take like a mule and another mule and make more mules.
So hey, let's take this. I can present for hours and hours. Why don't we do this? Why don't you tell me a reason that you think the Earth is a ball, if you want, or you can ask me a question, whatever you like, and I will give you my answer.
Okay, sounds good. And I like the question route, because I like when people explain things instead of me saying one thing and you saying another.
Yeah.
Planes,
airplanes,
jets, rockets.
Airplanes.
What exists? What doesn't? Planes exist.
Absolutely. Airplanes.
Jets exist.
Absolutely.
Rockets exist.
Small rockets exist. Big rockets don't exist.
Big rockets that potentially have left our plane do not exist.
They can leave the plane, but they don't leave the atmosphere.
Why is that?
Because you can't. We believe that there's a dome over us, and there's actually evidence of that. One of the things was, if you look at any NASA or SpaceX rocket, they go up really slow. There's like very strange things, and that's a whole nother rabbit hole. They curve out, and within a minute they run out of fuel, and you're watching a cartoon on TV. And the people that are watching from the land actually lose sight of it inside of that minute, and then it crashes in restricted waters over the Bermuda Triangle. But in Arizona, some amateurs launched a smaller rocket, maybe 20, 30 feet tall, and it went straight up, super fast, straight up, and it's spinning around. It's got a camera looking down and a camera looking sideways. This is the downward view. And all of a sudden, it went kerplunk. It sounded like a stone dropping into a pond. And then it started floating. And when it turned on its side, it's up 73 miles, right? And it went into something viscous, okay? Maybe it was water, maybe it wasn't. When it turned on its side, all of a sudden you could see across the Earth The moon, this little dot, it's hard to tell from here, but when you zoom in on it in the actual video, it's absolutely 100% the moon. So there's the moon across the land. And when this happened in Arizona, the moon was over Australia. Okay. Australia would be straight through the earth. There's no way to see that. And the question is, well, how come we can't see the moon from the ground? And the answer is because everything gets compressed into the horizon due to the way we see, and the thickness of the atmosphere at ground level just becomes opaque. You can't see more than 100, 200, maybe 250 miles on the clearest of days. The atmosphere becomes opaque. So this went up high enough where there was no atmosphere or very little atmosphere, super clear, and they could see far enough without it merging into the horizon, and bam, there's the moon over Australia. That's
So nothing-
absolute.
So nothing
100%
man-made
proof.
has left our plane.
This is it right here.
That's as close as we've got, you think?
I believe so. Well, maybe they've gone up maybe a couple 100,000 feet higher. I don't know.
So then what's the moon? What is the moon then?
Who the hell knows what the moon is, but it's definitely not a rock in space. If you look at the moon on a full moon night, okay, on a full moon night, the moon is lit evenly from edge to edge, okay? When you have a single source light, the sun, lighting up a sphere, it should be a hot spot and then it should fade out side to side. But when we look at the moon, it's lit edge to edge. When there's clouds scattered across the sky, the moon is only lighting up the clouds that are right near it. And if you're away from all the city lights, you can't even see the other clouds because they're not lit. If the moon was a far light, 238,000 miles away, it would be lighting all of those clouds up, right? Mm-hmm. But somehow it's lighting up only the ones that it's right next to. Like if it was far away, it would light up my whole hand. But right here, it's only lighting up my knuckles, okay? So what is the moon? Well, here's the astronauts on the moon, this dusty, dirty ball. Looks this bright from Earth. If you know the inverse square law of light, every time you half the distance, it gets 4 times brighter. So I'm looking at this from Earth. It's probably 20 lumens, but let's just say it's 1 lumen. Lumen is a measurement of light. If I went halfway to the moon, it's 4 lumens. If I went half of that distance, it's 16 lumens. Half of that distance, 64 lumens. That's how light works. When you get 100 miles from the moon, it's like 10 million lumens, okay? 10 million lumens will melt your eyeballs. You won't be able to take a picture and it won't look like that. This is fakery. Okay. And the other thing is, you know, when you're in the sunlight, it's hot. When you go in the shade, it's cool. Well, when you're in the moonlight, it's cold. When you go in the shade, it's warm. And when you magnify moonlight, it gets colder. That doesn't prove that the earth is flat, by the way. It just says the moon is not reflected sunlight.
You think it's actually a source of light potentially?
Absolutely, it's a source of light. And the phases, I believe that the sun, though, is tied to it, where the sun is like a Tesla coil and the moon is fluorescing from that energy from the sun. Okay. So why do I say that the sun is like a Tesla coil sending energy? Well, I can prove it. I can get a solar panel and capture that energy and turn it into a current, electric current. I'm not catching photons, I'm catching electricity. Do you know that scientists today don't know how solar panels work? They don't know.
Isn't it something like, you know, the material releases an electron from the photons?
It's a theory. They don't know how it actually generates electricity. And I know how it generates electricity. It's capturing electricity. That's all it is. So think about this. You got 2 house plants, right? Same exact plant in a pot. You put one in front of your fireplace and one in front of a fluorescent light. One of them is going to grow. The other one's going to shrivel up and die. Okay.
Is it because there's not enough light from the fire? Is that what you're proposing?
No, I'm proposing that the fire is not, the fire gives plenty of light. You have a big fire, but it will shrivel up and die from the fire. It's not getting the electricity that it needs. Everything in this world is electric and magnetic. The sun and the moon are part of the Earth battery system. And I could point you to some other videos that will talk about that. But, you know, it's crazy. So the thing is, again, anything above our heads or beyond the shoreline of Antarctica is speculation. Let me ask you a question. Is that a sphere? That's the moon. Quick. Is it a sphere?
Yeah, no, I've seen this one with you before. That's good though.
Oh, okay. So you have.
Yeah.
So you know that when you're looking at things in the sky, it really doesn't matter what shape they are. You can't tell.
You can't trust your eyes. You can't trust your eyes.
And it doesn't prove anything, right? So
what about eclipses?
Again, eclipses. So did you know that eclipses have been predicted for many, many years before heliocentrism was a thing? And you know about the Antikythera mechanism? So
don't know.
off the islands in Greece, and the island Antikythera, so they found a fossil, like a weird thing in the underwater. It's like 2,000 years old, and it looks like the inner workings of a fine watch, but just bigger. There's
I
all
have
these
heard of this thing.
gears in it.
Yes, right. Okay.
Yeah. And they figured out that it predicts where the eclipses are happening, when they're going to happen, where the positions of some of the planets are, and the phases and the moon of the sun and the moon. And they found out also that the eclipses repeat every 18 years and whatever number of days. They repeat again and again and again.
Yeah.
Yeah. But if we're in this heliocentric, crazy, insane system, nothing would ever repeat. Do you know about the 3-body problem? Have you seen that?
I've read the book.
The 3-body problem. So,
I love it. I'm a sci-fi junkie.
Yeah. So so they can't even with a supercomputer make the gravity of 3 objects work, but the entire billions of bodies in our solar system repeat without ever screwing up year after year, decade after decade. None of the stars move, right?
So then what about the sun? What's the sun?
Another good question. You're asking good questions, but you're asking about things that are above our head. I don't know what the sun is, but it doesn't act like a physical object. So let's say somebody's lost in the woods and they got a radio, okay? You can get other radio towers and triangulate their position, right? You just need 2 other towers and you can figure out where they are, right? You know how triangulation works with radio towers. So if you have a 3rd tower or a 4th tower or a 5th tower, you can really nail in the positions, right? It's just how GPS works. It's using ground-based towers, and the more towers you have, the more accurate the GPS location is. It's not done with satellites. That's a myth. And here's the thing. If you have 2 people in different areas of the world looking at the sun, you can triangulate and come up with an assumed position. But every time you add another person to that equation, it gets farther and farther off because everybody sees the sun in a different position from where the other person sees it. And I'll explain how that works in this. And again, this is me speaking. It could be done a different way, but I'm just showing you one way it could be done. If the sun that we see is projected from outside the dome, right, or within the dome into our atmosphere, we're seeing it in a like as a reflection. So imagine we have a big empty room and I split the room in half with a sheer blue bed sheet, okay? And the room's pitch black. You and I are in the room. We're 10 feet apart. We're 10 feet from the sheet and we're looking at the sheet. It's pitch black. Can't see anything. On the far side of the room in the center, there's a light and we turn the light on. Bam, the entire sheet lights up, kind of like the sky becomes daylight. So that sheet is a representation of our sky. It becomes daylight, but you can see through the sheet and you can see the bright spot where that light is coming from.
Sure.
So if a third person went up to the sheet, you can tell them right to put a little X with a Sharpie on the sheet. Well, when they walk over to me, I'm going to put an X in a completely different area on that sheet.
Because your angle's different. Yeah.
Yeah, because my angle, how I'm seeing it in a different position. So the more people we add to this equation trying to triangulate where the sun is, the worse it gets.
Okay.
So there you go. What is the sun? It's God. I don't
know.
So,
you know, on the model that I've seen and that you're showing me here on the plain Earth, when I'm fortunate enough to live near the ocean, when I walk to the ocean and I see the sun dip into the ocean, where is it going?
Yeah. So that's a good one. So if you're not on the ocean and you're at a high plane where there's super clear weather and there's no moisture in the air, the sun doesn't go down. It just goes away. It gets smaller and smaller and smaller. Kind of like, the Beatles might have known something. The man on the hill sees the sun going down, but the eyes in his head see the world going round. And the sun just goes away, gets smaller and smaller. But you do see it shrink on the horizon. And this is how that works. It's all perspective. So the sun is moving and we have these clouds, right? And the sun just goes beyond the clouds. And as it moves beyond, it's going this way. It looks like it's setting. It's setting here. It's going to set behind this cloud. And this cloud, as it gets farther away, 20, 30 miles, 40 miles max, these clouds become the horizon. You can't see the difference. And they just go beyond that cloud and they just merge with the horizon. It's really going beyond the cloud. So here's an experiment I did to prove this, okay? So I put my drone up at before sunset, and the sun was way here up in the sky. And in 5 minutes time, it went down, 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 down at a consistent pace. If we were spinning, it would continue to go down, but it didn't. When it got to this apparent horizon right here, it sat there for 10 minutes. It just sat there. It didn't go anywhere. Okay, that there alone, whether this is in focus or not, doesn't matter. It sat there and didn't go down. And instead of going down, it started to get smaller and smaller and weaker and weaker. And then all of a sudden, it just vanished into the thickness of the atmosphere. Its light could no longer push through and get to my eyes. Okay.
What's the theory behind that? What do you think? What do you think happened there?
I think that the atmosphere is thick. Like if you go in a swimming pool, a big swimming pool, super clear water, you can't see the other side of the pool until you start getting closer. Sure. So the atmosphere is like water, and it just becomes thicker. And I call it the deck of opacity, the atmospheric deck of opacity. It just becomes thicker. Most of the time there's clouds there, and it's just going, beyond the clouds and setting. And it looks like it's the horizon, even though the horizon is way above your head. It just merges into eye level. Okay. I have tons of videos to show you, demonstrate this. Videos, illustrations, all sorts of stuff. Explain it better than I can do in this short period of time.
How about stars? I just saw something today that said that astronomers watching the death of a galaxy far away, and they're like watching this through telescopes and stuff like this, they're saying.
Yeah, complete and total bullshit. You've never seen it. When our consumer optics have outgrown their lives, you just buy a Nikon P900 camera. They have a P1000 now, which is even stronger, but the P900, couple $100, you can zoom in. This is Arcturus. We're zoom in on it. This does not look like a burning ball trillions of miles away. This is within the Earth system. Okay. And each star has a different personality. This is, what star is this? This is Capella, right? It has this one, some people say, well, it's out of focus. It doesn't matter whether it's in focus or out of focus. It's showing you these cymatic patterns and colors and everything. And this is Sirius, right? It's slowed down a little bit. It's insane what we see here. And these things are within the Earth system. Everything we see is within the Earth system. Most of the time, except for one time, it was weird where we saw stars. We've sent balloons up on a perfectly clear star-filled night. So from the ground, clear night, tons of stars. As you get up higher, you expect to see more stars and even brighter, right? Because, when you go to the top of a mountain, the stars are better because you're away from the city lights.
Sure.
But by the time it got to 80,000 feet, no stars.
What do you think happened?
I think that the stars, again, we see them in a position relative to our own, right? So, it's really bizarre. I think that they manifest within the atmosphere. Like if we got rid of all of the air, I don't think we'd see any stars.
What about asteroids?
Not real. Now we've seen things come out of the sky. We've seen things blow up in Russia, always in a remote area in Russia. If you were an asteroid, you wouldn't always pick friggin' northern Russia or desolate areas. These are military weapons, most likely, that they're throwing in to make people think that asteroids exist. They do not exist.
What about the dating of stuff that scientists think is extraordinarily old?
Yeah, they're absolutely out of their minds. Carbon dating is a complete and total lie. There's been many times where they lie about what they send to the lab, and then the lab goes, oh, this is 10,000 years old. Well, it was a piece of friggin' dinosaur flesh. And they're like, well, it's 10,000 years old. And they're like, well, this is dinosaur flesh. So like, oh, no, I'm sorry, it's 10 million years old. And then they ban that person from ever sending anything to the lab again. Carbon dating is complete and total nonsense. Now, you can date things, within a couple hundred years, maybe, but that's it.
What about, so you brought up dinosaurs. What about dinosaurs?
Not real.
So the bones they're finding in the grounds are...
They're finding bones. So that if you go to, you've never seen a dinosaur bone. You've only seen plaster of Paris models in museums. And like the T-Rex, they found one bone from like a whale neck or something. And they theorized an entire animal out of it. If you look at the Velociraptor, it's a friggin' kangaroo. Okay. They don't have any dinosaur skulls. Now, yes, there were larger beings. I believe there was giants on the planet and there was large lizards, but the Triceratops, how did that thing mate? Okay. Look at these things. None of them make any sense. Structurally, they couldn't exist. They don't exist.
So, what do you say to people that spend their entire lives dedicated to understanding dinosaurs and saying, hey, I understand bones and bone structure and how these things work. And I've spent 2,000 hours a year for the last 30 years doing this.
They're the tough ones.
What's that?
They're the tough ones. They've spent their life in pseudoscience and they may believe everything they say. I'm not saying that they're in on the lie. They're just believing a lot of mumbo jumbo. But some of the things they believe might be right. They might have, small bones of small animals, and they're really doing that. But when it comes to the T-Rex and the Velociraptor and Stegosaurus, none of it makes any sense whatsoever. Go get a Stegosaurus, go to a toy store, buy a couple Stegosaurus models, and tell me how they mated.
So with these guys, like say it's one thing to say that there's government conspiracies, which totally agree with you on, but it's another to say like there's people like Elon Musk or these other billionaires that are having their own spaceship companies.
Yeah.
So let me prove to you that.
They're in on it too. I mean, Elon Musk is a puppet. He's the CEO of the largest tunneling company of the world. He's the CEO of the largest electric car company of the world. He's the CEO of the largest solar power company of the world. He's the CEO of what are his other freaking companies? Oh, he took over fucking NASA. Okay, excuse my language. Sorry.
It's all good. It's all good. It's an adult show. We talked about balls at the beginning of this. So.
Yeah, all right. So nobody could be the CEO of all those things. And listen to him talk. He's a moron. Okay, he's a puppet for the elite. The guy is a moron. All right, you are smarter than him, and that's an insult. Okay.
So you're thinking that he's just along for the ride. Someone's still pulling his strings.
Absolutely.
Okay, we'll get to that because I don't want to ruin the spoiler. What about things like subatomic particles, things we can't see that we need like microscopes and electron microscopes to see? What's going on at that level?
I don't know. Could work on a flat Earth, work on a ball Earth. I don't know.
Do you think that stuff because you mentioned electromagnetism and electronics? What about the Earth's polarity and then the electromagnetism from the Earth and like how compasses point north, et cetera, et cetera?
Perfect. Can I share my app with you and give you a 2-minute presentation, and I'm going to show you about compasses when we're done with that?
Yep.
So my app is, and I made this app for so when I'm talking to people, I could explain what the flat Earth is, because I try to explain it to them. Then I show them the app and they're like, oh, that's how it works. So can you see the app? Is it large on the screen?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so the sky is so remember we're over the Earth pond, and the Earth, just think of it as the face of a clock, and the sun goes around once every 24 hours. So the sun keeps track of the hours and the days, and the sun is going a little bit faster than the moon to the point where it laps the moon once every 28 days. So that shows you the phases of the moon and the position of the moon in relation to the sun. So the moon keeps track of the weeks and the months, right? Okay. So I'll slow that down. I'll turn on the stars. The stars are going a tiny bit faster than the sun, where they only lap the sun once a year.
But we're thinking the stars and the sun and the moon are some kind of display or some kind of.
They're the hands of time. Okay. They're in the sky, and they have patterns that can be predicted for tens of thousands of years, and they never fail. So the stars are going a little faster than the sun, and the sun will move into the zodiac that's right behind it, because that one will catch up once a month. It'll be in a new zodiac. In 2 months will be in Pisces, and etc. So the stars keep track of the seasons and the years. So the sky is a perfect clock. If I turn on the world time, it shows you what time it is everywhere else in the world. So wherever the sun is, it's noon. And then, it's 5 a.m. in Australia right now, 6 a.m. in Eastern Australia, 7 a.m. in Eastern Australia. And as the sun comes around, it'll be noon as soon as the sun gets there. So that's how the time zones work. But more importantly, let me show you how the seasons work. You see the two yellow lines? So the outer yellow line is the tropic of Capricorn. So this outer yellow line is the Tropic of Capricorn, and the inner yellow line is the Tropic of Cancer. So when on December 21st, the sun is all the way out on the Tropic of Capricorn, and the outer southern lands have their summer because the sun is going right over them, and it's far from us in the inner north because it's our winter, and it's far from us. But if I jump forward 6 months.
So the sun is creating not just light, but it is creating heat for us as well, and contributory towards our weather.
Right. So if I jump all the way to June, so here we are in June, you'll see that the sun is over the inner northern land. So it's our summer. The sun is higher in the sky. Think about an airplane flying directly over your head. It's high in the sky, and you can see its path for a long ways, right? It's at 10,000 feet or whatever and it flies over your head. So that's directly above you. Imagine that's the sun. Now we're going to put that airplane 25 miles to your left, right? Taking a parallel path, or just put another plane at the same time that's paralleling that plane, same height. You're going to see that sun low in the sky and for less time because it's farther out south from us. So it's just how the sun works. Because when the sun moves out to the outer south, it's farther away from us and it's lower in the sky. It perfectly explains how we see the sun. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's a fairly, I was going to ask that question, but yeah, you explained that well in terms of why that works. But, let me explain. Question begets itself then, if we can see across the water for miles or, in theory, indefinitely all the way across, why can't someone on the dark side of this plane see the sun when it's in the air? From the other side.
I'll show you that as soon as we get out of the app. Remind me, and I'll show you how that works. And you can't see it because, as I showed you, how the sun sets beyond the point of convergence. How at a short distance, its light can't even push through. And I'm going to show you how light can be next to dark without any barrier whatsoever. So real quick, and then I'll get out of the app. If I hit the question mark button, up come all of the questions you have, like why can we see too far? Or, what about,
this is awesome.
why the moon's upside down, or why the lie, which we're going to get to, or ships over the horizon. If I click ships over the horizon, up comes a playlist that Google will not serve you because they'll just give you propaganda, Bill Nye, the lion guy with the bow tie videos. So this will give you all of the stuff that will give you the information that you need to make up your own mind. There's also tons of other information on these other pages. We have playlists in different languages for people that don't speak English. But what I tell people is, and then I'll get out of the app, is every day there's a new video here. Short ones during the week, longer ones on the weekend. It's the featured video of the day. And I say, just watch the featured video every day for 2 weeks. And then you too will lose the respect of your family and friends, just like I did, because you will become a flat earther.
No, that's an interesting point to bring up, because the thing is, like, if this wasn't a topic of conversation, could we get along at a dinner table?
Absolutely. 100%.
Okay. So just making sure, because there's things we disagree with on everyone, there's lots of things that I disagree with people on, but at the end of the day, I can find some elements of commonality that we do agree on.
God forbid you bring up anything about NASA at the dinner table. We're going to get into it and we might be throwing food by the end. So what people do is they say, I didn't want to wait. So I hit that little archive button next to the featured video because I didn't want to wait and for every day for a new video. So I hit that. Up comes all the videos from this month. You hit the little hamburger at the top, all the videos from all the other months, right? And they're like, I haven't slept in 2 days. What do I do? And I'm like, welcome to Flat Earth. Keep researching and go on from there. App does a ton of other things. It's got weather. It's got countdown timers. It's got all sorts of things. There's a t-shirt shop in there. If you like the t-shirt that I'm wearing, just hit the t-shirt shop. It does all sorts of stuff, all sorts of customizations, and there you go. And
so what about the polarity of the Earth? What about the magnetism? What about the aurora borealis? Yes. What are we seeing there?
So the aurora borealis is interesting. It's there is a magnetic North Pole in the flat Earth model. So let me show you how circumnavigation works. And so at the flat Earth, at the center, some people believe it's a mountain, a magnetic mountain, whatever it is. There's a north polarity coming out of the Earth. And if I put a compass down and I try to go dead reckoning east, right? I have to keep turning to make sure my compass keeps pointing to the north is to the center. So east is not a straight line. East is a circle. West is a circle. Okay. Right. Either way, it's a circle. That doesn't prove the Earth is flat. It doesn't prove either because it works the same on a ball Earth. I can even go north. I can go north across, and then I'm going south without changing directions. Okay. Because I've past the North Pole. If I go in a straight line, that was dead reckoning east or west. As soon as you go in a straight line, you're heading south. Every straight line is south eventually. Every straight line, no matter what direction you go in, becomes south. This is a fact. That doesn't prove that the Earth is flat. Okay. What would prove it is going from Santiago. If you wanted to go from Santiago to Australia, right? The shortest path would be right across Antarctica, right? That's the shortest path. But people say, well, you're not allowed to fly over Antarctica. It's too dangerous. It's too cold, whatever. It's like, okay, let's just stay at, 50 degrees south and just go around this little short path over here. But that's not how it works. What happens is if you want to go to Western Australia, they go from Santiago, they go all the way. This is one of the paths, all the way up here, all the way across, and all the way back down. Or if you want to go to Eastern Australia, this is crazy. They go all the way up, you go all the way over to Europe or Dubai, and then all the way down, right? Well, you look at that exact path on a flat Earth map, and it's a straight line. Okay. If I wanted to go to the East Australia, boom, US, Dubai, and over. It's a straight line. Airplanes fly straight and level over the Earth plane, not the air globe. They fly over the Earth plane. Good.
So with scientists, are there different categories of scientists that you believe and that you don't believe?
Well, sure. There's scientists that do good work, but there's scientists that work for NASA that believe in NASA because they're compartmentalized. They don't know that NASA is a complete and total fraud. If I showed you that NASA was faking something, like photos of Earth, they admit they don't have any photos of Earth, right? So that's kind of weird, but we have photos of other planets. Like they came up with this photo of Jupiter, right? The one that's everyone's seen. It's in every textbook. It's been around for a while. Amazing picture. We got the storm that's bigger than Earth, and it goes forever. Well, in 2016, they said, hey, we got another shot of Jupiter and we got the Northern Lights. You were just asking about the Northern Lights. Well, yeah. They have their own Northern Lights. Doesn't that look a little fishy? Would you admit that it looks a little fishy? It looks fishy, but we'll say
fantastical. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it looks fantastical, sci-fi. But this is from friggin' NASA, okay? That they saw the Northern Lights. But here's the problem. Let's just assume that's real. If you overlaid these two images on top of each other and turn the opacity up and down, you'll see that every little wind current, these bands are spinning in different directions. If you look at any, crappy video from NASA, but you see this little dot, this little wave right here, look, it's right there. And these little waves, they're exactly the same here. And this little storm, it's exactly the same. It's the exact same picture. NASA told us that these were taken over 2 years apart. NASA lies. They're full of it. This is the latest picture of Jupiter. Not Jupiter, Pluto.
Sure.
It kind of has a friggin' weird cutout that kind of looks like the friggin' dog Pluto, doesn't it?
Sure.
Or is that just my imagination?
Yeah, a little bit.
Right. And Werner von Braun and Walt Disney work close together. Werner von Braun, the actor that played the Nazi scientist that runs NASA. So here's the 2012.
Hold on. So von Braun wasn't a Nazi scientist?
Well, you know what? He very well might be. Project Paperclip could be a real thing. I'm sure you're aware of that. They brought the Nazi scientists over there and they put them in charge of, our biggest aerospace industry and gave them NASA. But because I don't believe in the space race was real at all, I think that he's just an actor from Hollywood. He's just a friggin' guy playing the role. Here's the 2012 picture. Use your common sense here. Don't say you're not, don't just tell how you really feel about this. Here's the United States. This is from friggin' NASA. This is a map of the world. Yes, it's a flat map, but it's showing the relative sizes of all of the continents. I put a circle here showing about what we're seeing on this half of the Earth. We have a full Earth here, like a full moon. Somehow they always get an amazing shot of the full Earth. You have to believe that all of this and this and all of this and all of this and Australia is on the other side of that ball.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. But you're also seeing just a degree of it because there's the right side and the left side and the back side of it too.
Yeah, so
you're seeing a quarter of it roughly.
You're seeing a quarter of it.
Yeah.
Well, that's insanity. When I was talking about the heliocentric system where we're spinning, whirling, and twirling, in all these different directions, and they're not linear, they're curving. Every one of those directions is curving. Like when you watch the sunset on a ball Earth, you believe that you're on the top of the ball. You see the sun and that you're falling over backwards faster than the speed of sound, which is making the sun appear to go down. That's what you have to believe if you believe in the ball.
So this has been going on for a long time because, believing that the Earth is a globe didn't just come to a head when, was it Copernicus said this, right? Was it Copernicus that said that, hey, by the way, I think that the Earth is revolving around the sun instead of vice versa. And then he got executed by the church or whatever happened.
You ever hear the term that history is ruled by the whatever is run by the victors?
The winners write the history or something like that.
So you know the story of Eratosthenes, right? He's the Greek guy that figured out the size of the earth by sticks and shadows, right? He figured, he knew the sun was directly above him because it shined at the bottom of a well. So he had a stick with no shadow, and somebody 500 miles away had a stick, but it had a shadow. And the only way to do that is if it was on a ball, right? Carl Sagan pinned that into our brains in the Cosmos series. Okay. So he's the most famous guy that figured out the size of the earth within 2%. Neil deGrasse Tyson, the failed actor, and Bill Nye, the lion guy. They constantly repeat this meme again and again and again. But that story can't be found in any books until the 1980s when it was inserted into school textbooks. But on a flat Earth, it doesn't even matter if it's real, because on a flat Earth, the sun is close and there's no shadow on this stick and there's a shadow on this stick. If I had two sticks on my table and I had a light over this one has no shadow. And if the light's here, this one has a shadow. I can do math and tell you the sphericity of my table when it's flat. Okay, so it's a BS, belief system 100%.
But then even going back to like Middle Eastern astronomers, Mayan, wise people have also kind of come to this same conclusion that their world is round, and and
you
don't think they were right?
No. If you look, all previous civilizations knew the earth was flat. Here's one that's going to blow your mind. Ready? Everyone on earth knew the earth was flat in the early 1900s. Okay. Helios, this lie wasn't inserted until the early 1900s into the 1930s. And then all the world wars and everything happened. This is when the takeover happened of our world. There was an advanced civilization here called Tartaria in the 1800s and before, worldwide. And we have all the pyramids and everything. I don't know if that was pre-Tartaria or not, but these people didn't think we lived on a spinning ball. They built pyramids that pointed towards stars. They didn't think we were flying through space. And I interviewed a woman, 102 years old, this past January of 2020. And I was interviewing her about the World's Fairs, and she was remembering her 5th birthday party. Amazing details. I said, "What school did you go to when you were 5?" And she told me the school, the street, the teacher's name, kids in the class. I'm like, amazing. I couldn't tell you the name of my high school teacher, and maybe I could. And so I said, "What did they teach you in science about the Earth?" And she looks at me. She goes, "They taught me the Earth was flat." And I was like, really? And this was a school in Connecticut, public school. So then we started looking for other old people, and we found some. We found a lady in Croatia. She said everyone in the 1930s knew the earth was flat, but then they changed it. And we found newspaper articles from Europe and the United States that, on microfilm about teachers being persecuted for their trying to insert heliocentrism into the school system. And it was blasphemy.
Okay. So now it's the big question, $1 million question. Why?
Yeah. Why the lie? Why the lie? Can I quickly show you how NASA is more, just, do you believe, I showed you 2 fake pictures of NASA, but I'd like to show you that NASA is faking stuff like the space station. You've seen them flipping their microphones around and playing with their hats. These guys were doing a thing, flipping their hat around, flipping the microphone around, and this guy floats by and the green screen failed. And you could see his harness that he's floating on. Clearly, he's hanging from a harness. Okay.
Sure.
If you believe he's so NASA is faking no gravity on the space station with guys on harness. Unwind that. We didn't go to the moon. Okay. We didn't go anywhere. We've never been to space. So at the end of another press conference, they were saying goodbye, and the green screen glitched out, and everything, including them that was floating, glitched out, and the background stayed. Right. And then bam, they cut away. And this is just it repeating again. So there's another one. Another time they play with virtual reality. This woman was doing a thing for kids, and she needed to grab this thing, and they beamed it in. They even made a friggin' Star Trek beaming noise. It wasn't there, and she's manipulating something that's not there. And it's called augmented reality. She's looking at a screen, or she has contact lenses in that are showing her right in her eye where these things are. And sometimes they miss the object, or it goes through their face or something. They manipulate it wrong. They're using green screens. They're using augmented reality. They're lying. We didn't go to the moon. Okay. I can show you again and again and again. This is done on the 0G plane.
Sure.
Okay. You know about the 0G plane, right?
Yep.
So one time on live on the news, they were showing, they said, we have satellite coverage for like a minute and we're going to be talking to these guys. And while they were talking to these guys, all of a sudden they slammed into the wall and boom, they cut back to the news and like, oh, we're getting reports from NASA that there was a sudden shift in the space station. Okay. So I took that footage, I turned it sideways, right? This is showing you 0G. We'll get to that in a second. I turned it sideways and I compared it to what happens at the end of a 0G flight. Okay. This is the end of a 0G flight. This is when they had that sudden shift. Okay. Sorry about that. And so they fall. But if you watch this guy in the foreground, he's got two things floating in the air, duct tape and something else, and he catches them with one hand like a boss, right? Like he's done it 1,000 times, okay? This was a sudden catastrophic shift of the space station, and he goes, bam, bam, he catches both of them, okay? They're lying. They don't launch rockets into space. We didn't go to the moon, and every astronaut is a liar, okay?
Okay, why?
Right. So there you go. So now, why the hell would they lie about this?
Yeah. If it's flat, it's flat. What's the big deal?
Yeah, it's not the shape that matters. It's the lie that matters. So they want you to believe that you live in this heliocentric random accident. You're a random accident of mutation after mutation after mutation. You live on a spinning speck spiraling through an infinite vacuum where an asteroid can take you out at any second, where there's limited resources because we're on a ball, so there's only limited resources, where pollution is taking over, all of this fear, insignificance, doesn't matter, versus the truth that we live in the center of creation. We are in the center of creation in a created world by a creator. Use any word you want. You can even say God, right? That we have dominion over ourselves. Nobody has dominion over us, that we do not have to give our power away to anybody. But when you're in fear and lost spinning in space, you give away your power to what you think is authority. Like you think that the governments can tell you to do whatever they want, and you do it because you've given up your authority. We have God-given free will or universal law, whatever you want to call it, where they can't take it from us unless we give it to them. So they always tell us what they're doing. They always lie. They tell us they tell us in tricky ways where if we don't see it, that's our fault. We didn't say no, therefore we're saying yes. That's kind of how this world works. So if you think, that you're a random speck lost in space, you kind of lose power. And so the bottom line is they're hiding God. Well, there's people that believe in God and they're doing very well. Well, yes. And I don't even say that you have to believe in God to be a good person. Be a good person. Don't kill anybody. Don't steal from anybody. Don't get in anybody's way, and help your neighbor. Those are basically the 4 laws of this world. So what they want is they don't want people in the heliocentric world. You could say a God created this ball and all of the solar system and all of the galaxies. And, there's a distant God, or maybe he's everywhere all the time. You can say that, or there's a possibility that there is no God because it's a random accident. But if you understand that the earth is flat and intelligently designed, there's no denying the creator. They don't want you in a situation where you can't deny God, because then they lose power over you. We have conferences with hundreds, many hundreds of flat earthers, and all of them see through the deception. All of them know that we're special and that we're important. Understand, seeing the creation, seeing the world kind of cracks the spell. It cracks the spell to everything. I can wake people up to that New York event, the Connecticut event, the Boston event. I can wake people up to all those things and they go right back to sleep. But when you wake somebody up to flat earth, to the globe lie, it snaps them out of the matrix. And
so is this related to any one specific religion, or just the aspect of creator, regardless of whether you're Jewish, Christian, Buddhist, Hindu, pagan?
So all of those religions are, people say that the Bible and the Quran are flat earth books. Well, the Bible, I've seen a lot of verses in there talk about an immovable earth. And page 1 of the Bible says that God separated the water from the waters with a firmament. Werner von Braun, his gravestone talks about Psalms 19:1, which is about that verse about separating the heavens from the earth with a firmament, with a glass dome. So why would the scientists, the NASA scientists, rocket scientists, be talking about a friggin' dome over a flat, immovable Earth? So all religions fall into this, and all of the religions, if you get back to the heart of them, they're all flat Earth religions. All of them. None of them talk about planets, spinning balls. Nothing. There's nothing in the Bible about that. There's nothing. There's only in Isaiah, it talks about the circle of the earth. Well, the earth is a circle, okay? There's a circle of the earth. It also talks about the four corners of the earth, okay? So maybe the corners are out here, Who the heck knows? But again, it's not a religious thing. I believe that religions were meant to divide man. They divide and conquer. They divide us by countries, by religion, by race, by sex, by states, by football teams, sports teams, political teams. They're dividing, because if we all get together, right, and think together, they're done, because our thoughts create our reality. They don't want us thinking together and working together.
So is there anyone that's non-believing in a creator that's come to the same conclusion of a plane Earth?
I don't think there are. There might be one or two people that really are just disoriented or don't understand what they've discovered and haven't put it together yet. It's like me, before I discovered the flat Earth, I was best described as an atheist, and I looked at all religions and stuff, never bought any of it. I'd be listening to a podcast, got 3 pages of notes, loved what the guys are talking about. Then they mention Jesus or the Quran or the Bible, and I rip out the pages and unsubscribe and never listen to them again, because they're religious kooks, right? They believe in a God. But then when I understood that the earth is flat, I was like, oh crap, there's a designer. There's a creator. And then
so what does this creator do for us? So besides creating our planet, which is pretty good, I have no qualms about it. I'd rather live here than another place. What's that?
Created our plane.
Created our
Just
plane.
take the T off. Just take the T off.
Created our plane.
Take the T off, huh? Kind of looks like a cross, right?
Yeah, for sure. So, so what's the additional implications, right? He built this place for us, or, he or she or it, whatever it
us,
is.
Maybe we're all part of God,
right? Maybe we built it ourselves. We have this thing. Now there's still a creator. How is he involved in the rest of this? How is he involved in my day-to-day? How is he involved in our scientific research? Why is he preventing us from leaving the planet and exploring these places? And why have we gone through all these elaborate lengths to say that we've been to space, that we've got satellites, that we've sent out Voyager 1 and 2 to leave our solar system, that we've got these heavenly bodies and asteroid belts and asteroids and gravity and all these things that are difficult to explain and difficult to wrap our heads around.
Super easy to explain on the flat Earth. But the reason that we have all space agencies, the only reason for them is to hide God, to make you think you live on a ball. The only reason for the moon landing is to make you think you live on a ball, right? But people say, what about the space station? See this shot from the space station looking down at Earth, right? Where's all the land? Where's all the land? Can you tell me where the land is?
I don't know. It looks like clouds or something. Maybe it's over the ocean part.
Or maybe we filmed this from somebody's front yard and we just turned it upside down. Okay. Right. That's how easy it is to fool you. NASA gets $65 million a day. See this? Guess how much that thing weighs?
I don't know.
Guess how much it weighs?
100 million tons?
No, it weighs 40 tons empty. It's made of steel. Does that look like it's made of steel, or does it look like it's a balloon? Yeah. This guy's going to jump. Watch how fast he goes down. This thing is 40 tons of steel. Is that a balloon, or is that 40 tons of steel?
Isn't the theory that there's a certain escape velocity?
So
at
this
a certain
thing,
point you could be in orbit around the Earth.
So this thing is close enough to see the detail in the clouds, and it's able to move sideways, which is not very aerodynamic. That's a balloon. That's a balloon. Okay. And they tell us it's the space, the shuttle, that it's the external tank that falls to Earth and burns up and disappears before it ever hits the ground.
So let's take it to the next logical step. So there's a creator. He's created our plane. Mm-hmm. Now what?
So we're here. Do you believe in souls?
I believe that people believe in them. I have a hard time finding evidence of it.
Yeah, well, I again, this is your own journey. Here's what's next. You have to figure out the meaning of your life. I believe that we're here on a soul's journey, that we're here with amnesia. Our soul has a mission, and we have to align ourselves with our souls. The more you align with your soul's mission, the better of a life you have, the healthier you are. And the more you don't align with the soul's mission, the tougher of a life you have.
What are some potential missions for a soul?
To expand its experience, to be think of the soul as this is just me talking, as a piece of the mind of God, and it's just looking to expand knowledge and experiences. So, think of a world where everybody knew there was a creator, where everybody followed God's law or universal law, whatever you want to call it. It would be paradise. It would be amazing. And then you would experience all of these amazing things. If you look at the society that was here before us, when things were gigantic and there was advanced, free energy and all sorts of stuff, it was a whole different world. There was some crazy takeover after the last reset. And, they're trying to put us through another reset right now.
Why isn't the creator involved then? What if it was
maybe
so
the
good
creator
before?
is involved.
Yeah.
Maybe the creator is involved. We're here having experience. I love roller coasters and I love puzzles. I couldn't be having a better year than 2020, and 2021 has not let me down yet.
So that's the thing. So like, I just feel like there's so very little interaction from a creator. It's like he's said it and forget it. He's built it. It's kind of like if I took like an ant farm.
I disagree with that.
I'm going to create this ant farm. I'm the god of these ants, and go ahead and figure it out. I'm not going to give you any food or water.
Do you pray?
Do I pray? No.
Yeah. So then how do you expect them to be involved with you?
But if you do pray, what's the involvement?
The involvement's amazing. My life is amazing. I'm having the greatest time. And whenever I ask for something properly, with respect and within God's law, or just the right way, things manifest in my life out of thin air. It's amazing. It's magic. I'm at a friggin' magic show, and I love magic too.
But aren't there plenty of people that believe in a creator that are also scientists that believe in the globe?
Yeah, there are. They're just misinformed. There's lots of things you could believe in. You believe you live in a ball, but you're misinformed.
Well, I don't know what I believe in. I just know I know I live a couple miles that way, and
right.
I've never
go
been
outside. Go outside, sit on the ground, close your eyes, and imagine that you're spinning, whirling, rocketing, and going sideways at these crazy speeds. Right? Just meditate like that for 5 minutes. If you don't fall over or throw up, you're doing really well. Then shake it off, and then imagine yourself doing the same thing on a stationary, flat, non-movable, solid, created plane. And you're going to feel a lot better.
Things move, and it's always relative, right? You could be on a high-speed train going 200 miles an hour, or a plane going 600 miles an hour, and you can throw a ball in the air and catch it. It doesn't shoot behind me.
Yeah. So now increase the speed of the plane another 400 miles an hour. Take off the outside of the plane and throw that ball up.
Well, you got wind resistance, right?
Well, we got wind resistance here on the Earth is spinning. You think the air is Velcroed to the Earth?
I think it's moving with us. No,
you think it's moving with us? How is it possible that we're up here, the Earth is spinning 1,000 miles an hour below us, and when it comes down, we land right near where it took off from? How's that even possible? And the Earth should outrun me, because I'd have to speed up just to keep up with the Earth, because I'm making a bigger circle because I'm higher above the Earth. So my circle's bigger than the ground level circle. How the heck is that balloon keeping up with the Earth? So you can spin your head all you want, but it doesn't make any sense unless the Earth isn't moving.
So what are the next steps? Do you believe in technology and artificial intelligence and robots and computing and things like that are coming?
I'm talking to you on a computer now. I don't even know where you are. It seems like you're in the same room with me. We're looking at images in real time. Of course I believe in technology, but that doesn't prove anything.
Yeah. So that, so once we get objective, how long can authorities, the people that pull the strings, get
away with it?
Keep this away from us.
I have the answer.
Indefinitely?
Nope. 100 years.
100 more years?
No, 100 years total.
Okay. So when's our timeline up? When do you think that this gets all revealed?
2021.
This year?
Yeah.
Come on. This is the juicy stuff. Okay. Tell me more.
So in 1918, we had the Spanish flu, right? All of the guys were coming back from the wars overseas, and they were all sick, right? They were all sick from being overseas. So everyone got vaccinated so they wouldn't kill our war heroes, okay? Everybody was wearing masks back then. You can't find much information on why they were wearing masks, but they were all wearing masks back then, and they were all getting vaccinated. And then a massive amount of people died from the Spanish flu, which is also nonsense, okay? I think that even more people died than they're even telling us. or the population was less and the same number of people died, so a higher percentage than they're telling us died. And maybe they're trying to do the same thing again, because every 100 years or so, people wake up enough to see through the bullshit, right? And guess what? We're seeing through the bullshit. Maybe the internet got away from them and we got out on the internet. We communicated faster, and that's why they're censoring everything. Pollard they took Pollard down today. They banning people, you know, they're taking accounts away from everywhere, right? They're stopping us from talking, right? They don't want this information getting out, right? But somehow we're still talking. You know, they can't shut everything down. So they're scrambling now. I think that God's hand is involved in this time, and I don't think they're going to win. I don't know how it's going to work out. I didn't write the play, but it's definitely a play.
And I grew up religious, just to be candid. And so, and it's just been through my self-discovery. I'd qualify myself as post-religion, whereas I understand the purpose of religion, but I have a hard time of explaining how it's relevant in anyone's lives. Especially when you see things happen, right? And so, you know, I don't discourage anyone from being religious. I don't try to say, hey, don't believe in what you believe in. But for me personally, on my personal journey, it hasn't.
Well, I'm not religious, and belief is the enemy of knowing. I know what I know, and you know, belief is easy. You can believe whatever you want, and there's no evidence. You believe you live on a ball, but you have zero proof of it, right? You have zero proof in it, but you still believe. Maybe you don't believe it. I don't know, but it appears you believe you live on a ball. There's zero proof. You know what Bitcoin is, right?
Yeah.
I have a Bitcoin for any of you or your listeners that can come up with one proof of the spinning ball. One proof. One proof, and I have a Bitcoin.
You know, there's just you know, the reason why and we haven't gotten to this, and we're an hour into this thing, is the reason why I believe it is it just that all the evidence seems to point towards it. Like when you look at what's the Earth made of.
So hang on.
We don't really know, which is incredible.
Hang on. You said all of the evidence. Let's go through the top three. What's your one piece of evidence that the Earth is a ball?
Well, I mean, so they're tracking trajectories of us in space relative to other things in space, and then also the sun.
It's complete and total nonsense. Everything is within the Earth system. Think about this. You go out in the mountains in a clear area away from the city, clear night. You can see millions of stars up there, and we're told that these stars are other suns. Some are the same size as our sun, some are bigger. They're amazing, but the closest one is 4.5 light years away.
Right.
So imagine the sun. You know, the sun is a big yoga ball, and we're on a marble next to that yoga ball, right? If the sun was just, you know, a mile over your head, it would fill the entire sky, right?
Sure.
It would fill the entire sky. I'm just showing model. I'm bringing the sun close. Yeah. Now we move the sun. It's where they say it is, 93 million miles away, and it shrinks to the size of a coin held at arm's length. Okay. It shrunk. If I doubled that distance, it's going to shrink more to the point where you can't see it. But if I
look like a star. Yeah.
If I 8 times the distance, do you think you could still see it? Because its angular size is getting smaller. Light is like sound; it just dissipates over time. Its brightness, you know, gets cut by 4 every time you double the distance. If I went 8 times the distance, any thinking mind and science will prove that you can't see it. Well, that distance 8 times farther is a light hour, and the closest star that we see is 4.5 light years. How many hours are there in a year? Because that's how many times farther than 8 times farther it is.
And you can see them. But you're saying that that's not accurate.
That's not accurate at all. They're right here within our system. We send a balloon up to 80,000 feet, all the stars disappear. So maybe the stars are less than 80,000 feet. So
then also things like volcanoes and where lava comes from.
So I'm showing you how quickly over 100 yards something just gets smaller and smaller. And if she doubled her distance, you're not going to be able to see that anymore. Okay. That's just 100 yards. Right. And you can't even see it on the screen. So it went from this to that.
So the stars that we're seeing are not actually stars. There's something in our.
No, they're stars. They're just not what they're telling us.
They're not far away. They're not light years away or further.
They're within the Earth system.
So
here.
Okay. Wow. Yeah. I mean, so this year, what happens? What do you think happens this year?
That's a great question. What do you think happens this year?
I'm hoping they end the lockdowns. I don't know where you live, but we can't even go get a burger outside.
Well, I have yet to put on a mask because I refuse to, because it's part of their ritual. You know, they want us wearing masks. It's satanic. It's horrifying. And I will not put on a mask. I still shop without a mask and I get away with it. But it's not easy. It's not easy, and it's insanity. But
I've heard of these other things that try to explain why we exist and how matter forms and how things have gotten intelligent. And there's been a couple
that would work on a flat Earth and a ball Earth. But you mentioned gravity, so the distance of stars and everything. I just showed you that it's pseudoscience. That no proof of any of that. You can't even. You know how they figured out how far the sun is? Let me tell you how they figured it out. They said they watched Venus transit the sun. And since Venus is about the same size as Earth, they watched it transit the sun. And somebody on the East Coast watched it and timed it. And somebody on the West Coast watched it and timed it. And it was slightly different times. And so they did some math and they figured out the sun is 93 million miles away. What's wrong with that equation?
Yeah, I don't know my math that well.
Well, you don't even need to know the math. What's wrong with the equation? Let me give you a simple equation. All right, you have $1 million in the bank, and I'm going to multiply it times 10 every day for the next 4 days. So tomorrow you'll have $10 million. The next day you'll have $100 million, and the next day you'll have $1 billion. What's wrong with that equation?
I don't know. I need to get that bank account, though. You tell me.
No, what's wrong with that equation is I made up the starting balance. Okay, they made up the size of Venus. Venus could be the size of a friggin' basketball. All right, and it could not be. So
then why do you think this is the year? What's special about 2021?
Because people are waking up so much right now that they need to reset the world. They need a great reset. Otherwise, they're going to lose power. So either they're going to reign for another 100 years or they're going to fail miserably. And I have faith, and I have, through my years and years of research, I think that they are going to fail. I'm not exactly sure how it's going to work out. And the other thing is, this is why I do this. This is to wake people up so people get off their hands. They take away their power. This is a spiritual war that we're in. They want our fear energy. They want us giving our soul's energy away. I think that the currency is souls.
So what would we do different? So say someone like me that, still it seems to think that we live on a globe and, isn't very religious. What could I do differently besides praying?
You could stop giving them your power. You could stop putting on a mask. You could say "fuck you" and do and live your life and not pay attention to their system. You could stop feeding their system. You could stop using fiat currency. You could start growing your own food. You could start helping your neighbor. You could start doing all sorts of things that they don't want you doing. They don't want us. They have us. You can't be 6 feet from somebody. You can't see their face. Imagine if you couldn't see my face through this whole interview. Would the interview be as nearly as good? You're reading facial. I'm reading your face right now. If you had a mask right on, this communication would be a mess.
Right.
Okay. When you walk down the street, a sea full of faceless people.
Yeah, they're all muzzled.
You're losing all of that interaction, all of that. You could be walking down New York City street, a sea of thousands of people coming for you, and they're Dave. Hey, Dave, you see my face through the crowd in the corner of your eye, and your brain sees it, and you're like, "Yo, Dave, what are you doing over there?" Right? That's how our brains work. They're taking all of that away. They're lowering our life force. They're taking away, what it is to be human. They're trying to turn us into cyborgs.
Who's they, and then what's their end goal?
Their end goal is world domination, to take over, it's like a friggin' soap opera. They want to rule over us. They look at us as a different species. These are the royal bloodlines, the people, that interbreed within their family. They keep their bloodlines pure. And they're the ones that have been ruling the planet for, I don't know how long, or the plane, excuse me. Sorry for swearing.
So, I would argue they're already there. If you're worth $1 billion or more, I mean, you pretty much rule the planet. Like what couldn't you do?
Money is not how you rule the planet. Money is just as a way to control the people. The people that have the money are the ones that type the numbers into the computer to create the money.
And then what are they going to do with it?
It's about control.
At a certain point, like if I have everything and I have power, and then what? And then what do I do with it? Like if I'm the most powerful, manipulative person on the planet, what now?
Yeah, that's their deal. I don't know. If it was me, I would share the wealth with everybody and teach everybody to live in harmony and to help each other and make beautiful things. But they're not like that.
I want to end on that note, because that's the end of the day. Because regardless of what we believe that we live on, that's what both you and I want. And I guess we're on the same page that I am against people that don't want that for people.
Right.
I am against those people.
So we'll end on a note where, I've introduced you to some things, and what you should do.
I like the app.
is,
I'm going to go to there and dig into it because
Yeah.
I've been watching a little bit. Obviously, I watched Flatten the Curve on Netflix and whatnot, and I'm trying to do some research on this.
So you watched a Netflix deception.
Yeah,
that
for
was
sure.
a movie.
You're so quick with these links. That's good.
It's completely nonsense. You know why? Because you're asking the same questions that I asked. Everyone has the same things. This movie is a deception.
No,
Nobody
but I'm also on your
anything.
website, and I've been looking through some videos and trying to consume some of the stuff and just understand, I never want to be disrespectful, so I'm always understanding why people believe what they believe,
Yeah,
and why it's important, and
So-
that's the purpose of the show too, right? Is to spread awareness of different ideas and different perspectives and learn why it's important. And we just in the last 2 minutes discussed why it's important, right? You think that it's important for us to understand the plane that we live on is relevant because that'll make us happier, more peaceful, more harmonious, and more giving and generous with our lives and our livelihoods, right? In that kind of manner, right? Is that kind of
they have us believing in materialism, to only look out for yourself, competition, step on your neighbor instead of lift them up and help them. It's insanity what they want. So
I agree.
I
No, I agree. I'm on
it.
the same page with you there. You don't have to twist my arm to believe that.
I remember my point. My point was, you said that all of the proofs of the globe, you gave me 2. I completely wiped them off. Do you have any more? We can leave it. I'll let you work on it.
No, I mean, it's just what they've been
Bitcoin.
feeding us, right?
I have a Bitcoin for you.
Yeah. So it's just what they've been feeding us. So do you know of any plain earth people that have said, hey, you know what? I've been persuaded the other way and I believe again in a globe earth?
Nope.
Once you go flat, do you never go back?
Never go back.
Okay.
Right? You never go back. Now, once you look into it, again, belief is the enemy of knowing, which is from Crow 777 Radio, an amazing podcast, that you can believe anything. I used to do an interview and then people say, tell me about yourself, Dave. And I say, well, I went to 3.5 years of medical school and I realized it was horrible and I didn't like allopathic medicine. So I found a more natural route. And then I went into the business world. I tell the whole thing. 5 minutes later, I say, belief is the enemy of knowing. For example, all of you believe that I went to medical school. I never did, right? But you didn't bother to check what I said, right?
Sure.
So belief is easy. We're trusting people. You tell me something, I'll believe it. I'll believe it because you know what? I can see your face. That's why I believe it. Right? If you had a mask on, I don't know if I would believe what you say. Right. So once once you know things, it's different and it takes time and effort. So again, nobody has any proofs of the ball. I've been doing this for 6 years. There's 0 proofs of the ball. I'm offering a Bitcoin. If you want, I'll give you 2 Bitcoins. All right. Doesn't matter. You're not going to get any of them. Right? I'm keeping them. Right. because there are no proofs of the ball. Sorry. Period. And I'll end it with a quote from Nathan Thompson, who's a bit of a radical flat earther, is you can lead a man to flat water, but you can't make him think critically about the shape of the earth.
Interesting. Well, David, I appreciate your time on the show and sharing your insights. And at the end of the day, we do want the same thing, which is just a more peaceful, harmonious world and less greed and less materialism and less of this evil stuff that I think we both agree we could use less of, regardless of our belief in the shape of where we live.
Right. That's what they don't want. They don't want that because then
they'd rather divide and conquer.
Us. They'd rather divide and conquer, and then they take our energy. It's literally a spiritual war we're in.
Yeah, I don't like that stuff. So that was an awesome episode. I've got a theory with Henish Polkel, my guest David Weiss. And please check out his app and answer some more questions and question everything. That's the end of it, is question everything and please do your due diligence because he might be onto something.
Right. And if you have a podcast or a show or know of a show that wants to have this discussion, you can reach me at info@theflatearthpodcast.com and check out my podcast, The Flat Earth Podcast, available on all podcast players.
Thank you, David. Please like, comment, and subscribe. That was awesome. I appreciate having you on.
All right, man. Thanks.
Do not become attached to the signal, for the signal belongs to no one. 3 days from now, you will have an important revelation. Knowing this, there is something I need you to do for me.